Tonight on News 15, I begin a new series of reports called Ken Owen's Indiana. Each week, I'll take you to a different part of our area to introduce you to a person, place, or event that makes northeastern Indiana special. For tonight's segment, we go to Bluffton to meet a man who has dedicated his life to keeping Wells County informed. On the surface, the Bluffton News banner looks like any other daily newspaper, but let's take a closer look. Here's an article by a guy named Jim Barbieri, and another, and another, and another, and yet another. Who is this Jim Barbieri, and how in the world does he cover all these stories? Jim is a newspaper man who lives, eats, breathes, and when he gets a chance, sleeps journalism. On average, Jim writes 6 stories a day, plus an editorial, during what his associates call a 20-hour workday. He also shoots his own pictures, takes calls from people wondering why their paper wasn't delivered, and he recently became co-owner of the news banner.
I really don't regard it so much like work. I guess it's kind of more like a way of life with me. I've been doing it for so long.
When Jim was in college, he interned with the old Chicago American. When he was a senior, he got a job offer from the Indianapolis Star. But instead, Jim opted for life in a smaller town, and in 1950, he joined the Bluffton News banner. And life hasn't been the same since. About 10 years ago, Jim's wife, Barbara, began working with him at the paper. The couple has dinner together at a local restaurant every night. That hour and a half is usually the only quiet time they spend together in the course of a day, because it's not rare for Jim to spend the night at work.
He very often falls asleep at his typewriter, and probably the best story we have of him about that is one morning, or early morning, he woke up with the typewriter sitting on his chest, and he had, holding onto the typewriter, done a complete flip over and woke up with this complete weight on his chest, wondering what had happened.
And when Jim Barbieri takes a vacation, he doesn't head for the fun and sun.
Our vacations are usually going to press meetings. He relaxes to a certain extent, but it's always work, sort of.
During those rare times when Jim's not busy running the newspaper or writing a story or answering a phone call, his friends say you never know where you might find him.
Many times people will walk in the Pizza Hut late at night and wonder why this middle-aged gentleman is sitting there asleep, and everyone else comes in, sits down with him, drinks a cup of coffee, and then walks out later, and he doesn't realize they were ever there, but I think it's because he's tired. But he's there and available, and he's a big boon to our community. We'd miss him if he wasn't here.
If you know of someone who you think should be profiled on Ken Owen's Indiana, why don't you drop me a line at Post Office Box 1515 here in Fort Wayne. The zip code is 46801. And Liz, Jim was telling me that his wife and he used to have dinner every night at home, but they actually got phone calls from people wondering where their newspapers were. So they go out to dinner now.
So that's it, huh?
At least it's an hour and a half of real quiet time.
Okay. Coming up, Dr. Dina Dell reports on a type of fabric that could be hazardous to your health.
And it looks like our hot and humid weather conditions are going to continue. Maureen Ty has the weather forecast up next.